up, YouTubers and microgrinders out for microgrinder.com, back again doing another episode for our How to Beat Bovada Zone series, and we'll be playing some 10NL and 5NL again. So let's go ahead and get started. On the top two tables, I have two tables of 10NL, and down below we have two tables of 5NL zone. So, first session of the day, hope it starts off well. I set out my first hand, and hopefully things are going to go pretty well. I am going to isolate a little bit bigger here because we are playing anonymous on zone and it's 5NL and people tend to be a bit fishier. So I don't mind both of them calling. I definitely don't mind that flop. One thing I do have to be concerned about is somebody could easily have an ace deuce or ace four, but there's tons of other aces that I beat. Since it is a bit of a wet board texture, I'm going to bet on the bigger side here. And here we're going to check the nines. Not a huge fan of the 4 on the turn, but I'm not going to let it deter me from value betting. Go ahead and fold the 9s here. And then on the river, everything got there, so I'm just going to go ahead and check. But we do end up getting paid off by a weaker ace. So the queen deterred me there, the queen of diamonds specifically. Simply because his flush got there if he was going for the flush. Ace 8 suited, gonna go ahead and make the fold. And then we have a limper. I'm gonna go ahead and ISO raise up to 50 cents. So the reason for the 5x is I typically do 3 big blinds plus 1 for the limper, and then because I'm out of position, I like to add 1 more big blind in there to kind of try to maximize my fold equity. And when he calls and we get this board texture, I don't think I have much fold equity here, so I'm not going to fire out a continuation bet here. There's a straight draw, flush draw. I just think that if he has any sort of draw, he's going to call. If he has overs, he's going to float. So just going to go ahead and check. Here we have a super fishy open, pocket threes. It's going to be an easy fold. Given that he's betting such a small amount, I'm never folding here. Getting 4-1, so easy call. And it's a good turn for me. I'm going to check for deception here. Try to get him to fire out another bet here. Pocket aces, going to go ahead and do 3.5x under the gun. And again, I'm never folding here. I think he could have picked up a king. If he has a set, good for him. But, you know, I put him on the read that I think he's full of crap. And he could be doing it with a lot. But then when he jams here, I think I have to fold. This is a really great spot for him to bluff. And I think he is bluffing a lot. But given that price and given the amount of money we have to risk, I'm going to go ahead and fold. Oops, did not mean to hit that. So here we're going to go ahead and bet 55 cents. I like to bet a bit on the larger. I think when Villain jams that river there, I think he is bluffing a lot, but you know, that's the downside of playing anonymous poker is we really don't know what our opponent's ranges are. And you know in general in regards to population read, but given one particular opponent, you really don't know. Here I am going to go ahead and fire out just over a half pot size bet. And if he raises, I'm just going to go ahead and fold. This guy looks like a good opponent. Hopefully he's aggressive and he wants to 3-bet. And that's a great spot for me. So we'll just go ahead and make it 2.35. Make it on the larger side. And maybe he wants to be aggressive and push over the top, but he folds. So works out well for me there. I'm going to go ahead and flat the min raise. Really fishy. I can make the nut flush, so given 5-1 there in regards to the pot odds, I'm always going to be calling against a couple of fish. And then here, I think it's a little bit too weak to isolate. I don't think the short stacks can squeeze too often, so I'm going to go ahead and flat. And he min raise squeezes, which is quite funny. Of course, I'm never folding here because now I'm getting 13-1 on my money, so just an easy call there, just for a super cheap price. And I think I could have be chopping the best hand here, so I'm not going to fold. And here I'm going to go ahead and raise a limper with my pocket threes. And I'll make the fold here now. Given that the 5 comes off on the river and there's potential straight on the board now and he called as well, I'm going to go ahead and fold. Ten jack offsuit, could open it, and the cutoff you can fold. Either's fine. Depends on how well you play post flop. 6-8 suited, definitely would be open this on the button if it's not raised by under the gun or middle position. And I am going to flat even though he short stacked and he did 4x it. And when he checks, I'm just going to go ahead and check behind. I hope to hit an ace on the turn. Three really isn't that great of a card. I'm just going to continue just to check it down. Against a min raise here, I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet him. You could flat, but I think 3-betting is fine as well. And then when he calls, I'm just going to put him all in. He's such a short stacked. I have top pair, second best kicker. If he has ace jack, good for him. And I'm just going to go ahead and fold the ace 3 off. And just in case he does have me beat, I'm just going to go ahead and reload. So he was just purely bluffing, so really fishy move there. Pocket 9 just going to go flat versus under the gun raise. And pocket 9s here, depending upon the bet sizing, I might go ahead and call. This is interesting. We have this opponent donking out. He flats. At this point, I don't know if my 9s are ever good here. If only one person let out, I think he could be doing this with a flush draw. But I think somebody has a jack, so I think we have to fold. So there's only 17 people now playing in the 10L player pool. Now we're playing super short stacked, unfortunately. I'm not sorry, short stacked, but short-handed for tabling. So I am going to go ahead and sit out. And we'll just focus on our 5-0. I don't feel like playing 4-handed or 3-handed. I would prefer to be playing 6-handed. And so I'm just going to go ahead and sit out until the player pool jumps back up. Now we do flop and up down, but there's a flush on the board. I don't think I have much fold equity against his opponent, so I'm just going to go ahead and check. And then when he checks again, I'm going to go ahead and fire out just over a half pot size bet as a semi bluff. King 3 off, I'm going to go ahead and fold that. Ace 10 suited, depending upon how good you are, you can open this middle position or you can just simply fold it. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for 1 second and sit out on the tables. We have landscapers here at my complex and they're being quite loud with their equipment, so I'll be back in 1 minute. Alright, so it looks like landscapers have kind of moved on past my townhome. So let's continue with the 5-L. The player pool is just getting drastically smaller in 10-L, so it's just dying. So we're not going to be doing any more 10-L for the session. I'll just leave the tables open up here. And that's the one odd thing about Bovada Zone at the micro stakes on their Bovada network for their speed tables is that 5-L zone is always running and 25-L zone is always running, but 10-L zone is almost never running, and it just comes and goes, and there's really no rhyme or reason for why it's running one day and it's not running the next day. It's always running on the weekends most of the time, simply because everybody wants to play on the weekends. You have all the recreational players jumping on. But during the week, it really just doesn't run that often, and sometimes even on the weekends, it's not running. So, whenever I see it on there, I try to jump on in and get some hands. But, I'm at the mercy of, how often it's running and how often it isn't running. People at Bovada 5.0 are throwing a really range around 4 to 5. And this guy is squeezing an under the gun raise, so Ace Queen's not going to do very well as a bluff catcher. I don't think he has a polarized range. So I'm just going to go ahead and sit out and fold and see if I can see what he's 3-betting with. I want to try to get this hand to showdown to see what one of the opponent has. And they're both short stacked, and I would suspect that if either of them have a pair, all the money's going to go in. And like I said, yeah, he had queens, and he ends up getting coolered by pocket 10. So one thing to remember when you're playing zone is that your opponents, they are not playing a polarized range where they are balancing the ranges with bluffs and value bets when they're 3-betting. In general, at 5-0, if you watched my previous video on where I talked about developing a 3-bet range, just about everybody is betting a really strong value linear range where it's pretty much anywhere from 4 to 5%. And so we're looking at like pocket 10s plus, ace queen plus. And so when you're, thinking about flatting a 3-bet, you need to have that in mind. And you only want to flat a 3-bet, with a really strong hand. And most of the time you're just going to be 4-betting or folding, to be honest. So that's just one thing to remember. And I talk about in my videos in regards to blind defense that people are folding to a lot of 3-bets when you're doing blind defense. So you can actually, versus a late position open, you can implement a polarized 3-betting range yourself. And based upon my database analysis and what I've seen on my population reads, is that it does work. And I'm recommending around a 1-to-1 bluff to value ratio, because people are folding around 50 to 60% of the time. So if they're folding half the time, just throw 50% bluffs in there and do 50% value bets. But the interesting part is that when they are opening in under the gun or middle position, they tend to like to call 3-bets. They don't like to fold. And that makes sense if they're playing a stronger range, but the funny thing is that most people playing 5-0 zone, they are not really positionally aware, and they're playing the same percentages almost exactly for VPIP and PFR from under the gun all the way through the button. There's very little change. There's maybe like a 2% change in the ranges that they're playing. So that's the very odd part. I really haven't figured those out. I'm going to need to reanalyze my database when I have a larger sample. I did it around 30,000 hands. And so, I figure that, that was a decent sample size, but maybe once I get around 50 or 60, it's going to give me a better sample. Here I'm going to fold because we have 2 deep stacks. I don't want to get squeezed, but if they look like they were short stacks, they were unlikely to squeeze, I would just call behind. I would overlimp with my suited 1 gapper there. Versus an under the gun raise here, I'm just going to go ahead and make the fold. It looks like this is going to be a bit of a short video since I'm only going to be 2-tabling. So you know what, we are at 14 minutes. I'll just let it run for 1 more minute and then we'll call it a video. Here we could defend. I think king 10 off is fine, so I'm going to defend blind versus blind. And hopefully he fires out a c-bet. And this is easy snap call. No point in raising here. We are just going to be taking a check call line in position to maximize our value against him. And again, just check calling. And then on the river as well, we're going to go and bet an amount that I think that he can call. So just under a half pot size bet, and we get snapped off. So I'm going to go ahead and sit out from here on out. So, things went pretty well. I won around 20 big blinds, playing a few hands on 10-L, and down here it looks like we won about a half a bind. So thanks for watching. It's been Out with MicroGrinder.com. We'll see you at the next episode.